He's got so much conviction. So this is a tone that's very common in like punk music and punk derivative music. Is that nasal tone? It's got bite to it. It's a little counter to like a lot of it's a spit in the face to a lot of traditional forms of singing, right? Like God save the Queen, right? Like really nasalize it, and you get that harsh sound. It also makes it safer to do stuff like frying, though. And the reason being is that when you nasalize everything, like you have a lot of room for the air to do whatever. So you can put a lot of air behind stuff and be fine, because it all goes through the nose. So you can get grittier tones too. Yeah! Nasal tones also make it easier to go up higher. High notes take less air. And because they take less air, they're hard. So one of the ways to make high notes easier is to nasalize things. So he's on F. So traditionally, the way that an F would be approached is a little bit more delicate, a little bit more subtle. Or right? But he has and that gives him that bite to that, and it makes it really easy. You can be very aggressive with your air if you nasalize things. High heels on, couple. So he's doing both there and here at the end of this. So this is when he removes nasality entirely. He's still got his soft palate down, which is what gives him that sound. It's like a more intimate sound where you get kind of close up to the mic. Your soft palate's down, kind of like this. It doesn't sound like this when you sing, but this is what your soft palate down sounds like. So if I do dum-dum, it sounds better when I sing like that, than when I talk like that. When you talk like that, it's weird. But if you sing like that, it kind of makes sense. Dum-dum-dum. And you get close up to the mic, so you get that proximity effect, which makes it sound a little bit more intimate. Proximity effect is when you get closer to the microphone, the lower frequencies, the bass frequencies go up. So you can kind of hear that right here, right? The other thing I didn't explain, and I'm editing it right now, and I just want to correct this. So it's not that the soft palate is down entirely. Okay, so the soft palate can be lifted in 3 ways. Vertical, side, side. So what he's doing is he's doming the soft palate, but it's still vertically up. And this is very common, like Beyonce really kind of popularized this. It's super common in neo-soul. And I'm pretty sure like Beyonce is the one who really introduced this little intimate thing. So I just wanted to point that out for anyone who was really interested in the minutia. And you'll throw in the names, high heel, right? Nuance. So I actually reached out to my voice and speech pathology contact, who is a lot more into like the science and the anatomy than I am. And I wanted to discuss this particular technique because of vocal frying on the top and like fry screaming, because I come from opera. So like nothing about an opera singer's training would ever be able to accomplish this. And it just shows up and I think it sounds great. So what I was told is that, first of all, usually when people go up higher, they tilt either their thyroid cartilage or they tilt their cricoid cartilage. That will allow, for various reasons, someone to ascend in a way that is very easy. But because in rock and in metal, a lot of that nasality, the fact that that nasality is there, means that you can actually go up higher without having to tilt. So that means the voice, the larynx can stay in a neutral position. Because if you tilt the cartilage, any one of them, right, they get thicker, more together. And what a fry is, it's a... So if you're tilting, you're forcing the folds to kind of get closer together and more taut. So they're not going to be lax like that. So you have to have a neutral larynx. And so to go high without tilting, again, you need that nasality, and then you need that neutral larynx for the folds to go plop, 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 plop. And this is what I love about like going to my voice and speech contact instead of talking to a bunch of opera singers who just regurgitate tradition. I love that every little style that you'll ever encounter, the greats of that style always have these really cool, nuanced techniques. And listen, I doubt YungBlud has ever sat down and looked at the anatomy of the voice, but this is what I love, and this is what is going on. This is what is happening when he sings that, and I just think it's super awesome. That's me nerding out. But he's not... What's YungBlud, and this is the first time I'm hearing YungBlud. I really like how much variation there is. There's a lot of passion in the phrasing, and a lot of like, it's not one tone, not one thing, not one way of doing things. There's a lot of variety. It makes it interesting. So again, with that kind of thing where you're drooping the soft palate, brave vowel of nasal. Okay, so that's pretty high. That's an A natural to a B flat. I don't know if I would ever try to do A natural and B flat like that. But good for him. And I'm not saying it's a bad decision. I'm saying it's risky business here. So I think that the words are, is there really life on Mars? Let's talk about vowel modification real quick. Is there really? Is there? So why? Well, that vowel is more general. It's nicer. It makes it easier to go up high, and then also lifts up the soft palate. When you go up high, you kind of need to lift the soft palate. You can get away with it. It's not efficient. You can get away with a down soft palate if your air is like, wow, immaculate. You can get away with a lot of inefficiencies if your air is really good. But for the amount of, like, he's putting a lot into it. There's a lot of air here. He's still navigating it really well. But to do that, to do what he's doing as aggressively as he's doing it, he's making decisions about which inefficiency, right? If you do everything inefficient, you're probably not going to hit the note. So he's got to make choices. So nasality, lifted soft palate, and a little bit of grind. I always, man, you got to give it to, like, punk musicians, really, the great musicians. That's so hard. This fry scream is, it can really screw you up. The vocal folds are about, for someone who's assigned male at birth, the size of a nickel. They're the size of a nickel put together. So you have these two small things going blah, 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 blah. And if they do that too hard, you get what's called a vocal hemorrhage, where bleeding starts to happen. Or if you do it too much, you'll get what's called nodules. If you mistreat any exterior part of the skin, like if you play video games too much, or guitar is a great example, you get calluses. Well, calluses on the vocal folds are called nodules, or polyps. And they will affect your ability to sing on pitch. They're not good. It's not a good thing. You don't want callus on your folds. And so you have to treat them delicately. So even though this sounds really kind of brutal and cool, there's still technique here. Listen, YungBlud's probably not sitting down and being like, I'm going to do this and that and the other thing. But there's, I would imagine that maybe he did take voice lessons, or I'm not sure. But if they didn't, this is really astute. This is really well done, because this is not easy. And this is prolific. Is it prolific? This is a high level singing in a genre that doesn't generally get respect for high level singing. Hard vocals is a difficult thing, and there's not enough education out there. I have trouble getting education on it, and this is my jam. I will say one thing, and I've talked about this before in a lot of other videos. So there's EQ, equalization, right? So if I do EQ and I cut the highs and then I boost them, you'll see how there's a little bit of fuzz, a little bit of sizzle. This is it down. Oops, nope, that's just the straight up volume. Where's the EQ knob? There we go. Right? So you hear that sizzle. Well, what you can do in harder alternative rocks is you can do what's called multiband distortion, where just the higher frequencies get distorted. And that's very common in hard music. It's almost ubiquitous. And what that does is it gives you this. I can't do it on this soundboard. It gives you that sizzle, but now there's distortion here. And I don't know. I just can't do it. It's a really cool effect. If I had Ableton open, maybe, but I don't. Unfortunately, OBS doesn't work with ASIO drivers, so I can't demonstrate it. That's what's going on here. It doesn't make you fry good, but it makes you sound more aggressive. Walking out into the dark. This is really cool. This mic technique I really like and I really respect. So you'll see some singers do this where they put the mic right up to their nose. So listen to the sound difference. Hold on, let me actually put this on camera so you can all see it. This is a condenser mic, so I apologize for all the popping that you're about to hear. But if I do, let me get more nasal tone. You'll see that the second it goes closer to my nose, if I'm using a nasal tone, the second it gets closer to my nose, you get more of those higher frequencies and more of that nasality. So this is why he has that mic positioned there. I mean, maybe for all I know, I nerd out about these things and I like it, but for all I know, like he might not be doing that intentionally, but that is an effect that results from that. So there's nasality here, again, with the singing. His soft palate is drooped, which gives it more of a neutral sound, too. So he's mixing and matching different things. Right? They're gonna try to take your heart, they're always gonna confuse you. He's got so much conviction. But they can't. But they can't, right? I don't know if he's British, but that's definitely like a nice, cool effect to droop your soft palate and not care necessarily about what the vowels are in the word. Vowel modification is really common, by the way. It's not like everyone's always trying to do the exact word. It's more of the sound that vowel modification achieves, and we can make different decisions. This like droop soft palate thing is super popular right now. As I watch over you. I know earlier I said that the soft palate has to be raised when you go for high notes. There's definitely truth to that. It's not going that high though. So that's F sharp, which is the high note. So actually in this kind of range, it's very, because this is not the super range. There's this weird little part of the range where you're not in your middle, but you're not high yet. And it actually helps to dome in this part of the range, dome the soft palate. So that in combination with the nasal is actually really interesting. Is how I would, I'm classically trained, so I'm not going to be able to mimic this, but is how I would do it. But what he's doing is and it's kind of, it does end up going on pitch because of that nasality, and it gets domed so it doesn't sound too abrasive. So the line, the melodic line doesn't get chopped up too much. Like, you see that? Like how the change doesn't, there's not a bunch of change in tone. It sounds pretty consistent. This is what opera singers call cover, which I hate that term. It like, just call it what it is. It's a slight doming of the soft palate in a more of a neutral vowel. But it makes the phrasing consistent from the low to the high. Because that's cool. Cupping a mic, if you do that, an audio engineer is probably going to kick your ass. But it does have an effect. So there's the proximity effect, which allows you to highlight lower frequencies the closer you are, right? And then there's cupping, which does that as well. So combined, you get, right? You get a kind of a really dirty low. And audio engineers hate when you do that, because if they want to add lows, they can do so surgically and not with that much chaos. But this is a genre that embraces chaos. Go for it. But I love you all my life. I actually really like the age of social media as far as its ability to inform culture on who's on top and who's not musically. because what you actually get is the talent rises to the top. Which is why, like, he's playing piano, he's playing guitar, his conviction in singing is absolutely, like, he really means what he's singing, and he's dedicated and committed. And this is something I need to work on, because I'm always focused on technique because I teach it, and I need to, like, learn to just kind of go for it and commit to the performance. So what's cool with social media, like how Machine Gun Kelly rose to the top, how I'm sure YungBlud rose to the top, is that, like, there's musicianship, there's expressivity, there's talent here, and that wasn't always the case. Like in the 90s, a lot of people had to polish their sound. Now in social media, you need to throw so much content out there that you can't spend so much time polishing. You have to just be good first take or second take, but usually first take. And I imagine that YungBlud doesn't have to do many takes. I imagine he's really, really stellar, because that's what I'm hearing. I like this strum pattern. On guitar, people don't generally talk about strum patterns, but they're kind of a really important part about playing guitar, particularly with a pick. So he is, as he moves the chord, he's hitting the lowest string. And it gives because the strum pattern is jum 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 jum, right? And putting that low note in there makes it a lot more interesting and breaks up the monotony that a strum pattern done throughout the song tends to have. All of my life. So, I mean, YungBlud clearly knows how to sing clean up high. That's B flat. That's pretty high. It's a pretty high note. And he's hitting it in full voice, and it's the vowels are right there. And I like that, like, he can sustain it. That the mark of someone who's comfortable on a note, particularly high notes, is someone who can sustain the note. He does so the first time and then kind of walks it back the second time, I imagine, for artistic purposes and decision making like that. But, like, this is someone who's got, like, real singing chops by anybody's standards. So that's a belt, obviously. Yeah, belts, you can get that straight sound in there. If you tried doing that with a thyroid till, it wouldn't work out. Thyroid hill is more classical singing. That's great. That's great. I love doing this stuff on YouTube. I like, these are singers I've never heard of, and it's always an absolute pleasure to hear someone talented like this. This is great.